All I know is that it has something to do with Wanda.
Ah, hell, what is it this time? That skirt done fucked up reality just a few months ago.
Well, I guess that means she's just about due for another breakdown.
Carol, that's just tacky. And besides, with Vision gone, I might have a chance again.
And I'm being tacky?
And the helmet's off. All of a sudden they got Cyclops, optic blasting out the Juggernaut spawns. Went out the woods, Sabretooth takes a chunk out of Wolverine's side. We can't let it slide. So we'll blow back by the wind that storm concocted. Right back into a fist from Colossus. How? Now the blob drops out of the sky, so Piotr is pinned and Logan's so healing aside. That's fine, cause Remy...
Hello and welcome to another episode of Rollin' 20s. We are the show that has tried Soylent Green and can tell you needs more salt. I am Jeremy.
Steve. Jesse.
Remember, you can subscribe to this show and several others on the Mission Start Podcast Library on iTunes and on Stitcher. You can follow us on Twitter at rolling_20s. If you have any show suggestions, want to suggest a topic, or want to just call me an asshole, you can email me at mspfreight@yahoo.com. We're still using music by Adam Warrock. You can find his music at adamwarrock.com, as well as several of his latest albums up on amazon.com. How's the evening, everybody?
Yeah. I'm a bit exhausted, but I've been up since the ass crack of dawn.
Why? And what's it like being in that crack?
Cold and miserable, and I had to work.
Sounds like dating Monique.
Ouch.
Hey, I tried to change it up. I didn't say a Kardashian this time. Yeah, we are in the middle of Nerd Nirvana that is known as the E3. That should be ending, I believe, tomorrow. Already there's been some interesting announcements. I'm listening to a lot of the debate about the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, and at this point, I'm of the same mind I was way back when Super Nintendo was the thing. I just want to see the games library. That's where my decision's going to be made.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what's your guys' opinion? A lot of people have shed tears over the Xbox One apparently not being backwards compatible and not being able to be played offline.
Backwards compatibility hasn't really been an issue that I've noticed. Like,
Unfortunately, they seem to be breaking that trend.
Well, I don't know if you can call it a trend. I mean, it's one of those things where maybe people have gotten used to a privilege and have started calling it a right.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
You know, it's the same way it's always been to me. Whoever has a superior library is going to be where my dollars go, and I am not one of those people that'll rush out and buy a first generation of a new console. Things always go wrong that way.
the one thing that
it's not going to be an impulse buy for me anytime soon.
Yeah.
You've heard
the
what?
The fact that you have to have the Kinect connected to the Xbox One, it sounded like at all times just seems a little ridiculous and prone to mishaps.
It could be, but I know that Microsoft's trying to position this as more than a gaming console. But yeah, you know, I just think it's a wait and see. I think people need to stop picking sides already because we don't know what's coming yet.
Yeah.
Well, you know, everybody loves to take sides, even with... What?
What?
You cut out there. I did?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said everybody loves taking sides, even when there's maybe not sides to take yet.
Yeah, that's generally true. I mean, all the boards are lit up with the PS fanboys versus the Xbox fanboys, as they put it, and I just don't give a rat's ass. As long as
try to remain neutral.
Yeah,
Jacob,
dickhead. If I could just play the latest copies of Halo and Kingdom Hearts, other than that, I don't give a shit.
I just heard more about the Xbox One is all.
Yeah, that's what people are crying over, but that's neither here nor there. This week we're going to talk about the X-Men vs. Avengers series, since it always seems to factor into our latest conversations on Marvel. Might as well take a look back at the event that actually seems to have turned the Marvel Universe on its ear for a little while. But before that, there was a decent amount of news that came out this week. Gary Friedreich, you guys familiar with that name?
No.
No.
He is apparently the original creator of The Ghost Rider. And he had a case that was thrown out of court regarding the rights to the character. He sent it to an appellate's court. The appellate court has brought the case back into the courts. So they actually have to go through the lawsuit. He could actually end up 100% owning this character by the time it's done. it's one of those things where I don't know if it's yay or boo, but I mean, if he wins, that means the Ghost Rider would have to effectively vanish from Marvel Comics.
Unless he decided
to lease it. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, those people that own Ghost Rider books, they could suddenly be worth a hell of a lot more if he wins. It's just one of those weird little things that I thought was relatively interesting. You know, this is another character similar to Superman, Superboy, and Angela who could end up having their future in the balance of the law, basically. Let me see. We talked about Michael Rooker potentially being cast, or he was cast in Guardians of the Galaxy, possibly as one of their original members, Yondu the Archer. There was a strange picture that was put out on Twitter of him with a mohawk, which some people said may have something to do with the character. I think he may have been just jacking around, because A, it was a mohawk that looked to be about half an inch tall, and B, there's this expression on his face that looks like he's staring at whoever's taking the picture going, "Are you serious?" Some people compared it to a Cupid doll. I think he's in his 50s, if not 60s by now, and him with his itty-bitty mohawk, it is a little off-putting to me. DC has announced the second of character-specific themed charity campaigns. This one is called We Can Be Heroes. It's to help stop hunger in the Horn of Africa. And the featured character on this one is Superman. Basically, they're starting a bunch of charities that seem to involve the silhouettes of some of their big 7 characters. You know, it's one of those things where if it works, it can be a great thing. It's just, I don't know if I want to stick one of my licensed characters to this. But then again, superheroes have an odd way of, well, even fictional ones have an odd way of galvanizing people behind causes. And this one is actually, it has its own Indiegogo page, so you can look it up from there if you want to donate to help hungry people in the Horn of Africa. V, you may want to speak up some more when you speak. You're still coming off as quiet in between.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Still stupid cough thing.
Yeah, I know. The first reviews have come out on Man of Steel, which probably has a midnight release tonight of all nights. The reviews are oddly mixed, and when I say mixed, I don't mean there's absolute bad ones out there for the most part, but they seem to go from very positive to eh.
Yeah,
well, at least nobody's
about it. Sorry.
What did you hear about it, V?
I said IO9 is rather mixed about it. Sometimes they're all exuberant.
Well,
other times it's like, we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I don't quite know what to think about this yet. Steve, what's your comment, man?
I was just going to say at least no one's come out and outright said, oh my god, this is the worst movie ever, no one go see it. You know, going to is not exactly thrilling, but at the same time, if some people like it and other people are just like then there's nobody on the opposite end going, oh my god, kill the director.
Well, I have the question as to who's giving the positive and who's giving the Is it all the industry people giving while Superman fans are the ones going, this is wonderful? You know, it's like me going to a Marvel film. It's probably going to come off better on me because these are characters I truly enjoy, but some other people may not think as much of it.
Although then there's the flip side where, you know, when it went to see the third X-Men movie and it was kind of like, oh my god, what have they done?
Hey, I'm an enough of an adult to say when my crap is shit. But I did come across one reviewer who went through the Associated Press, a guy named Jake Coyle. His review started with a headline, "The leaden Man of Steel does not soar." The way he described it was about the way I feel about Zack Snyder's work in general, where he tries to add all this gravitas and all this importance, and he never seems to really able to pull that trigger. You know what I mean? It's like when 300 came out. I thought it was really good when I first saw it, but on the second run-through, it seemed like he added a bunch of visceral visuals instead of a whole lot of character depth.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, it sounds like we're running into the same problems here. This reviewer, I don't know if he's as anti-Superman as we are, but he did make mention of how Superman in this movie seemed to be catapulted into a quasi-religious figure. And he also mentions how it seems like the first part of the movie is a setup where they're just trying to trying to make this into an emotional gravitas, it just never came around.
It kind of felt that way about the previous Superman movie, although I didn't see like the first 20 minutes of it. It still felt like it was building up when I started watching it.
The previous Superman film suffered from a lot more problems. This one sounds like it has more positives, but it still doesn't sound like the characters made a very good movie on a whole. You know, this reviewer made specific mention of the scene where he mentions that the S on his chest isn't for Superman, it's a glyph for hope. And the reviewer says it's kind of an earmark of one of the serious identity issues of the movie. He rated it 2 stars out of 4, so he didn't hate it, but apparently he didn't find enough to like about it. You know, everybody go out and see it, make your own opinions. It's completely up to you, and art is subjective. But unfortunately, you know, those of us that are paid to actually write about it apparently have mixed opinions. So, open minds.
Yeah, I think sometimes, I don't know, I tend to not listen to critics most often, simply because I think they are paid to go out and watch these things entirely too often, and you get a little jaded.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I tend to only listen to people's opinions that I know like similar movies as me, so
Exactly.
people I know, not critics as much.
Yeah.
Since, you know, hence I tend to use my friends as guinea pigs. Go see it first.
Yeah, but
And to watch this.
But that is why the 4 of us sat around talking about how funny it was to make fun of Judge Dredd and how, you know, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and Mystery Men were these wonderful films where most people said it's crap.
Yeah, true enough.
I really didn't like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, yeah.
Oh well.
I've only seen it the once, though, so maybe if I watch it again, I'll...
Yeah, I saw it in theaters, and I was familiar with 90% of the characters already, so it helped.
That's
Yeah.
fair enough.
I think the only one that I didn't know of was the chick vampire, and I wasn't as familiar with the...
Dorian Gray was a mystery to me.
Gray, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd heard of him, but it wasn't really like... It wasn't until the picture, and I was like, oh, yeah, I kind of remember hearing something
Yeah.
like that,
I was familiar with Dorian Gray from literature.
Yeah. Let's see, moving further along, did you guys know there's a Need for Speed movie coming out?
What? They were advertising it in... the hell magazine was I working on today?
Yeah, DreamWorks actually has a Need for Speed movie coming, and they're already they're apparently going to film scenes with a couple major American motors. They've gotten Ford to give them a Shelby GT500 for filming of the movie, as well as a Ford F450. They call it the Beast.
Need for Speed movie? I thought we already had 6 called Fast and Furious.
Well, apparently this is DreamWorks' answer to the Fast and the Furious. You know, they want it out. You know, you can't leave car porn in the hands of just Vin Diesel.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, it's not like Need for Speed is a deep premise, and I don't think it has any deeper premise than Smokey and the Bandit per se. But it is interesting to think that somebody else is actually trying a modern, you know, car chase film these days. It is turning into a rarity.
Yeah, I actually can't think of any others other than the Fast and the Furious and,
I think Gone in 60 Seconds was the last one that wasn't part of a major chain.
Yeah, saw that one.
what about, Grindhouse?
Never watched it.
No,
Death Proof.
not for me.
Yeah. Robert Rodriguez does not turn me on. Jamie Foxx was on Jay Leno, and he showed everyone what his electro voice sounded like. You know, the voice he had to use in the movie, which of course involved a little bit of grittiness and kind of heavy breathing. I'll have the webmaster add the YouTube clip to the report. The funny thing is, when I listened to it, I thought, okay, that's not bad. That actually helps a little bit. The weird part, though, was as soon as I listened to it, my first thought was, why do I think this would make a better Batman than Christian Bale? It's one of those. You know, he had a nice balance between I'm going to kill you and, wait, I can understand what you say. So it was just kind of interesting. I still hope that they're going to add some special effects to that blue face of his, though, because that by itself is just not doing it for me. Did you guys hear about some Florida 20-something who decided to go into Dunkin' Donuts and complain? And she filmed herself doing it?
What?
She went on an 8-minute rant. I haven't heard it yet because apparently it is so ear-jarring that a lot of people have not sat through it. She apparently posted this online thinking a lot of people were going to stand up with her against corporate oppression and things like that. Most of the comments, though, have turned against her because she really went on a tirade against some poor employee who never, to their credit, never lost their cool. And some of her quotes were, I literally thought this was the best Dunkin' Donuts in the city, and I gave you guys so many good, remarks online because I have a business degree, and, I really did until that bitch just completely pissed me off.
Uh-huh. Who's this?
What?
Her name is Taylor Chapman. She's 27 years old. She keeps talking about the fact that she has a business degree.
Okay.
One of the quotes is she told me, okay, you can get your order for free next time. So you know what I told her? I want the whole fucking menu, bitch, twice. Wait. Another quote here is, even if they hock a loogie and shit in it, I don't even care. Because one time they pissed in my fries. Literally. I could smell the piss in it. That's why I'm not eating this food. I'm giving it to my boyfriend.
What? This is a donut shop and they sell fries? What?
This is a Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts does have some general food in it. But this is one nitwit who was upset. You want to know why she was upset?
Yes, actually, at this point.
You're going to hate it. She was missing her receipt from her last order.
What? Really?
They didn't give her a receipt, so she decided to go in there and give her a piece of her minuscule mind.
Alright, how big is the bashing on her on that video she posted?
I don't know. I have never actually opened the video. There's a link in the story on YouTube, and at some point I may listen to this if I'm really that bored and desire to clean my ears.
I honestly can't imagine myself being that bored.
Yeah.
I can't either.
No.
You know, I'm going to give one more quote here because this really gets down into the depths of what may be wrong with her. And my wife does not like a certain word in here, so I'm gonna say it, but Quote, well, guess what? This shit's about to go live, bitch, right on Facebook, 'cause I already posted what your dumbass did last night. So I hope you're happy with your little sand nigger self, 'cause I'm about to nuke your whole fucking planet from Mars. You think y'all are tough, big fat Arabs bombing the Trade Center? I'll show you tough. End quote.
Okay.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. This apparently is a college graduate.
Yeah, This is where you go in to make a point, and somewhere along the way, you forget that you had a brain.
Yeah, well, you want sad, though? You know that these people who work in these places are generally minimum wage people. The person she went there to confront, they found out later, was an 18-year-old named Abid Adar who kept his cool. Somebody somebody 9 years younger than she is, a male, kept his cool. So somebody needs to grow up.
Somebody needs to give that man a medal.
And somebody else needs to find himself a new girlfriend, because if she's giving me that food, man.
No.
It's almost as bad as the vomit that comes out of her mouth.
Anyone that would stay with someone like that.
Probably self-esteem issues out the yang.
Yeah.
I've discussed how I don't like what I see when I look in mirrors. I can only imagine what this cat sees. You know,
I'm going to play the devil's advocate here. I'm going to assume, big assumption, that she's not like this normally.
I don't know, but still, for a missing receipt, I could think of 20 other ways to go about this.
The only thing I can figure, I've seen people do it. They go and they get so wrapped up in what they're saying that they say things that they would never say, except due to the fact that they are that worked up.
Well, obviously she thought she was going to get famous on the internet, but I think we need to move on from here because we could soak up like an hour. I will end this particular part of this by saying, bitch needs to light the fuse on that tampon and move on. Let's see.
I think somebody did.
New trailer came out for 300 Rise of an Empire.
Still not watching it.
Nope.
Yeah, I'm not doing it. I watched it. I sat down and watched it because somebody among us had to bite that bullet. And
Better you than me.
yeah, if you've watched the first one, I don't see anything here really worth going into. It looks like the first one, but they used the first one as a concept, but only had half an idea how to get there. So I can't say based on the trailer that I would recommend it. That might change when the movie's done, but I'm not seeing it.
It was a novel concept. I enjoyed watching it the one time. Will I ever watch it again? Probably not.
I don't think I can recommend it unless you're in a group of friends who've had too much Mountain Dew.
Tracks for it?
There's no such thing as too much Mountain Dew.
Not yet, but once the video's out, you can bet there will be a good one. Speaking of E3 earlier, several trailers have been released on the marquee games. Of course, we found out that there's going to be a Halo 5. We found out that there's going to be a Mario Kart 8. The new game by Bungie, the original creators of Halo Destiny, had a trailer. Battlefield 4, Killzone Shadowfall, Super Mario Bros. Smash 2013 that now has Mega Man as a playable character.
Really?
Oh yeah, the original Mega Man. And Metal Gear...
Away from those damn Wiimotes, I might actually play this one.
And Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. But the one that really kind of piqued my interest a little bit was the trailer for Final Fantasy 15. The problem was that people had seen this trailer before. Final Fantasy 15 is the new name of Final Fantasy 13 Versus.
Wait,
I
what?
saw that trailer. I
Yeah,
have no interest.
a game that was originally made as a side sequel, kind of a side story to Final Fantasy 13, has instead been renamed as Final Fantasy 15. So, I wonder how far down the pipe has Square Enix fallen, and if Final Fantasy is that much of a problem for them to put out, why don't they focus on other stuff? Because Tomb Raider was pretty freaking good.
Yeah. But was that Square Enix?
It was
a new company.
No, Square Enix was the one who produced it. I mean, Crystal Dynamics, the ones who absorbed Eidos, were the ones who originally produced it. Square Enix finished it, but I think they've got enough there that they could at least make another game.
Well, yeah, obviously. I don't know. The Square Enix stuff seemed to be all marketing.
It does seem to be turning into it does seem to be turning into the Disney of games lately. You know, they just buy it, put it out, and hope it works.
Yeah, I saw that trailer for 15, and it's like, I don't care.
Haven't bothered yet. That's how little I care. Little bit of a sidetrack here. You know how in Japan the latest rage in music, at least among the creepy ones, is the idol groups like the AKB48?
Mm-hmm.
There was a top 10 list of karaoke songs that the Japanese youth love. Astonishingly enough, no idol groups. Unsurprisingly, I'd say at least 6 of them were Vocaloid characters.
True. That is rather unsurprising.
Yeah. You know, it's the unfortunate thing. I am an anime nerd, and I enjoy it, but there are a lot of stereotypes that hold true, and unfortunately, you know, their predilection with graphical girlfriends is unfortunately true. You know, you can see that every time you see one of those long Daikamura pillows, the ones you hug and pretend you're actually hugging the person.
Yeah. I don't know. I was cracking up the other day. I started reading a new manga series, and long story short, the guy has been writing a 10-year-long character biography about a fake girl, essentially his waifu. And the translator, you know, had to put in a little blurb, you know, when he finds a real girlfriend, you know, how dare you betray your waifu? And I'm just like, see, there it is. That's exactly.
You know, I've never really understood this, because as much as I get that a waifu would probably cause you less emotional pain than an actual partner, at the same time, unless you were completely fooling yourself, they'll never be able to hold you. They'll never be able to help you when things are actually down. They'll never be able to actually create a family with you unless you spend the time trying to hack your DS and create kids.
Yeah.
So I never understood why people do this. Maybe I'm just disconnected or something, but I don't get it.
I don't get it either.
Yeah. Well, another E3 trailer that came out was Batman Arkham Origins gameplay. They actually show some gameplay. Unfortunately, it leads me to think about the conversation we had on this earlier. It's interesting, and I know it's a different team, so I hope they make a great game. I'm hoping there's something unpolished about this, because it did seem like there's something I wasn't clicking as well as the previous games. So we'll have to see where it goes. The one thing I did take away was that he used this weird kind of quasi-grapple gun where he shot it, hit an enemy with it, and then a second claw shot off, hit another enemy, and forced them to ram their heads together.
Intriguing.
A bit, but unfortunately it's one of those things that I bought Arkham Asylum late. I bought the Game of the Year edition. When I finished it, I was excited enough that I bought Arkham City new, but this one I may wait until some significant reviews come out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just picked up Arkham City myself.
Yeah. Much different game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Further on, we already talked a little bit about the Sony versus Microsoft kerfuffle. Speaking of which, the Microsoft's... wow. Sorry. Yeah, that was a little bit of a brain fart. A guy named Don Matrick, representative from Microsoft, he may have shot himself in the foot. Because we discussed a little bit how a lot of people are complaining about the Xbox One's current features. People were complaining about this thing having to be connected at all times, apparently, even to play single-player games to the internet. His quote in an interview with Jeff Knightley on Game Trailers. We, quote, I need to back up and start that over. Quote, we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360, end quote. Now, you have to sell a new product. Is dick really a way to sell your product?
No, but that won't stop people from trying.
Yeah. You may have to speak up again. You came off as soft.
My apologies.
It's okay. But this is... What the frick is wrong with people? Why does it seem like there's so many high-level individuals coming out and saying stupid shit?
I don't think I will be buying any of these consoles. I'm going to stick with the 360.
That's about the point. I mean, I may buy a PS4 just because they've got some exclusives that intrigue me at least, but I'll wait till other people find out how these things are broken first. But at the same time, yeah, I'm not trading in any of my library or past consoles. As a matter of fact, I may just pick up some different used consoles at this point just for the sake of.
Yeah. I think I'll just be going over to other people's houses and using theirs.
Yeah. The only other console I want to get is the Wii, and that's strictly because I want the Wii Fit, because I've used it before and I really liked it. I don't actually want any of the games on it.
Quick vote. Who wants to watch V do Naked Wii?
It doesn't even have to be naked.
God, I got the video this hour.
Yeah, whichever way you choose to do it, but I think we want to see it. Wow. Remember how I was talking about how we needed more people from the Anime Expo to come in and talk on the cosplay.com forum so we could get some honest answers?
Yeah.
You guys are not going to believe who started into the thread a few days ago. Mark Perez, the CEO of the SBJA, has started talking to people.
Oh. Did he have anything good to say?
Depends on your opinion. I've had a couple of conversations with him, or at least I've started a conversation with him. I'm only following mine because if I followed everything going on, I think I would have a headache. The answers he gave make sense on the surface, but I'm sensing a lot of spin on them. It's like when he talks about the influence of the Anime Expo, he mentions that in 2009 it was because of the Anime Expo that they moved the memorial for Michael Jackson. I know. My response to that... I don't know. I mean, this is what he claims. My response to that is, even if it's true, I mean, you're talking about a funeral or a memorial versus a convention. You're talking about possible commerce versus sure commerce. So I would think if the city's going to make a decision, it's a simple one. I don't know if that's necessarily something to crow about. I mean, after all, when the X Games came in, they made it pretty clear that we got nothing.
Yeah, it was quite awkward that time.
Yeah. So he's given some apologies regarding the handling on that, but I still don't know because, somebody there had to sign the final contracts to agree to the dates even after the X Games came out. And he said at one point that he found out about it the May before the convention. So I brought up the fact that one of his people brought it up to me in September of the year prior. And he said, oh, that's right, I heard about it in March, which still is not helping me here.
No, yeah, I mean, so nobody mentioned it for 6 months?
I know, I mean,
CEO?
That's my question. I mean, was he unaware of it entirely? Did his people not trust him enough to tell him? Or was he actually only aware of it in March because he found out later somehow? Either way, this is not a good way to go, unless for some reason it slipped his mind and he heard about it in September, which still does not help his cause here.
Well, I mean, mistakes can be made, but yeah, that was kind of a serious oversight. But I mean, honestly, a CEO can't be responsible for everything, so he does have to delegate. But obviously, whoever he he delegated it to dropped the ball a bit as well, especially if somebody already knew about it, in September, and then nobody even thought to say, this is all over my head, can I get some help with this?
Oh, I know, it's like I posted, somebody in management should have been more careful about it than this. But let's see, I think that's about all the news. We'll use a clip at the beginning of the show from Floating Hand Studios. They had the House of M. They actually adapted that one for a little while, so you may have a little trouble picking out the characters, but I think the intent's going to be there. And this week we decided to, as we said earlier, read Avengers vs. X-Men. This event, I don't know, I think it succeeded where a lot of events on both sides have not followed through on their promise to change the landscape of things. And this one, by the time it was done, everything for most of the major players was pretty well altered.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a major paradigm shift.
Yeah. I mean, V, how much of this did you read? V?
V?
Sorry. I did not manage to get through part of it.
Oh!
I failed majorly.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry.
Well, at least his vagina's back in the house anyway. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to summarize it. I mean, basically both sides found out that the Phoenix was going to return to Earth, but the Avengers and the X-Men had decidedly different ideas as to how to handle this particular event.
Yeah, although I have to say it was, on the X-Men side, pretty unilateral decision on Cyclops' part.
It was, but by then they'd already gone through several events where mutants were just fewer and fewer, and he was almost the de facto leader of mutants in general at that point.
True.
And to make it work, he did run it like a paramilitary organization. He makes the decisions, and everybody else needs to follow along pretty quickly. But at the same time, we've discussed how the X-Men have dealt with the Phoenix Force on at least 3 occasions, if not 4 or 5, and everyone's managed to survive. So, unfortunately, this was one of those things where I thought the Avengers... Well, I don't know about the Avengers, but Tony Stark and Captain America, I think they got a little too arrogant in their handling of the matter.
Well, true, and but you also have to look at it and, there was some... While Cyclops was kind of the de facto voice for mutant kind, excuse me as I clear my voice, there was the opposing faction of Wolverine, and he definitely didn't make the situation any better.
Well, by then the
America went for advice, and he got pretty much, Psych is pretty much crazy, handle it yourselves.
Yeah, well, it's like Wolverine is a good judge of mental aptitudes.
Right, well, that's kind of the point of the whole matter.
Yeah, I guess that is a missing part of the story. By then, the X-Men had been split functionally in half.
I mean, the other thing, too, is, it struck me as amusing and hypocritical when, he basically, in Wolverine's conversation with Cap, he basically said, I know Cyclops, he's not going to handle this well. The Phoenix, it's got a history and everything. And I'm sitting here looking at this going, okay, and you were just completely non-existent with, your wannabe lover Jean Grey, getting X'd out of the picture, and you don't have issues?
Oh, it's... Yeah, there was bad advice coming to Captain America in several different respects here. I don't know. It is one of those things where it also did not strike me well that the Avengers just showed up on the X-Men's island nation at this time in the coast and started making demands.
Right.
I mean, at this point, a lot of the things that were supposed to help mutants over the years had failed systematically one after the other, and the Avengers were one of them. You know, we've discussed before how the X-Men seem to be handling mutant issues up to this point almost exclusively, not because nobody else was capable of handling it, but literally because no one else stood up and said, "What's going on here?"
Yeah. I mean, they reached a national... Hell, they reached a worldwide, you know, kind of level of awareness so quickly, and yet the X-Men were always kind of those secretive guys that went around and, you know, kind of took care of everybody else's problems. You know, there was never a, you know, Avengers showing up on Genosha, or, you know...
Right, when Avalanche is wrecking downtown, for some reason the Avengers didn't show up very quickly, but the X-Men were there pretty fast.
Yeah, it was always just, you know, somebody else's problem.
Yeah, and of course when the initial confrontation between Cyclops and Captain America went poorly, the next thing they do is decloak a helicarrier with an armed group of Avengers standing there at the ready.
Yeah,
Not the best way to go.
Admit, it was kind of amusing just going into that first comic, and it's just kind of like, the Avengers. And I started counting, I was just like, oh, screw it. And then went down to the X-Men, and there's like 6 pictures there. I was like, yep, that seems one-sided, just slightly.
Yeah.
I love the little narrative boxes describing, you know, colorfully describing some of the encounters and whatnot. My favorite one was actually between Emma Frost and Iron Man.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of great character interaction here, but I mean, when you bring up the Avengers, you do bring up a lot of interesting and powerful individuals. But Cyclops' team at that point was, you know, his partner Emma Frost, Magneto, Danger, Magic, and a Juggernaut-powered Colossus, as well as the Submariner. So when you're talking about raw power, it's not like he was standing there, you know, just with the original 5, really hoping their powers could hold out. He's standing with a bunch of world-cracking individuals.
True, but none of them were exactly stabilizing forces.
Oh, not a one. That's why he called them the Apocalypse Team. You know, basically, this is the team that's brought forth when shit's hit the fan and you just really need it to stop.
Yeah.
And let alone when the first shot that the X-Men took against the Avengers was Magneto flinging Colossus through the bulkhead of the through the bottom of the helicarrier back out the top again.
Yeah, I was like, wow, scary. So we're doing the fastball special with Colossus this time. Excellent.
Yeah.
Although I did find it amusing. I mean, they spent such a big deal about, you know, Colossus has the Juggernaut armor and everything. He never used it until almost the middle of the series. Not true.
If you read the companion A versus X, it was a bunch of the individual fights that were going on here. So basically, they fleshed out the apparent lack of fight scenes in the series with a mini that showed you the individual skirmishes and who won those.
Okay, so when he was fighting the Red Hulk, they just didn't draw the Juggernaut armor.
Right, when the whole thing went underwater at the base of the mountain, and, you know, of course he was getting angrier, the Juggernaut armor came out, and he was beating the shit out of the Thunderbolt Ross Red Hulk, but unfortunately he noticed that what he was doing was destroying the pillar holding up the island, so eventually he ripped off the armor and just begged the Hulk to knock him out before he destroyed the place. So he had him easily, but he had to take the hit to keep from killing people. But I mean, it's like when Iron Man took on Emma Frost, and then suddenly he realized that the Master of Magnetism was sitting right behind him.
Yeah.
You know, Quicksilver's involvement, though, was pretty sudden, since he had not been near the teams since he lost his powers and regained them due to a betrayal of the Inhumans. Let alone the fact that the Scarlet Witch got involved, because she had barely been seen since she had destroyed the mutant population.
Right.
So, her involvement, I don't know if that was one of those, oh great, she's back moments, but, I mean, for mine, it was more or less, oh piss, something's really wrong here.
Well, she couldn't stay gone forever. I mean, that would be...
No, but her abilities are approaching Superman levels of overpowered. I mean, she used to cause just kind of random luck inferences and fire these weird hex bolts. Now we found out that she can alter reality on its base level.
Yeah, although I
Damn.
wonder if she didn't develop a kind of block after how badly she screwed it up the last time.
Not as far as I can tell.
I never really actually saw her do any reality-altering moments.
Well, I don't know. I'm reading Ultimate Avengers, and she's still one of the people that, or not Ultimate Avengers, Uncanny Avengers, and she's one of those front and center people. She's using her powers to do it. I guess it just depends on whether or not she's that malicious at that time. But the series did at least go fast if you didn't read a lot of the tie-ins, because by the end of the second issue, Hope, the person everyone thought was going to get the Phoenix Force, was already displaying that it was beginning its connections.
Right.
And, Wolverine, of course, decided that the only way to handle this was he was going to apparently ram his claws through her head.
That didn't work so well.
No. The story was fleshed out in one of the tie-ins about the group of Avengers in space. Beast, War Machine, the Protector, Thor, Valkyrie, Vision, and Miss Marvel, who are supposed to fight it in space. I kind of wish that was fleshed out a little more in the actual series itself, or in the main series. Because as hopeless as it is, you do wonder what the hell they're going to try.
Yeah, especially like Beast. It's kind of like, well, I know you're all smart and everything, but in space, yeah.
Yeah, but the further this series went along, the more you started to cheer for the X-Men, at least up to about the 6th issue, because the harder things got for them was just astonishing. Their backs were against the wall the whole time, and it seemed like they were losing members left and right simply because they kept getting captured in skirmish after skirmish.
Yeah.
It almost came down to nothing but Cyclops' Apocalypse team at the end there. At least by, say issue 5? I guess it was issue 6. At the same time, though, the Avengers didn't trust Wolverine. Captain America threw him out of a Quinjet because he figured the guy went underneath Utopia just to kill Hope.
Yeah, he kind of did.
Well, he did, and, I don't think he ever really denied it.
He definitely did.
He just kept trying to skirt the issue the hypocritical prick he is.
Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest, though, I kind of felt that Wolverine's, plan was at least a little more realistic than Cap's.
I do, but, you would think after years of knowing Cyclops, he would have a little more faith that he would at least try to do the proper thing.
Yeah, their relationship, while sometimes that close, wasn't at that point at that time.
No, but very rarely has Cyclops really steered them wrong. Very rarely. It does happen. I'm not gonna claim the guy's perfect, but he does do a lot of decent things in his time.
Well, I mean, that was brought up later in the series by Rogue, but, again, but that's what it is. Things wound up the way they wound up, so, what are you going to do?
I thought Scott's reaction and attitude in this whole series was borderline egomaniac. I think Magneto said best, you're starting to sound like me now.
Well, what other choice was he given, though? We've discussed before how the dream of Xavier really no longer applied when you're the leader of a dying race. The best you can hope for is to make it through another day with the same population you had. And unfortunately, Xavier's ways weren't going to get them that far.
Well, and to that point, Xavier was out apparently interacting with his son Legion, and had kind of washed his hands of the entire affair. And until Scott and the rest of them were empowered, wasn't even interested enough in what was going on to act.
Yeah.
So at that point, if you're really relying on Xavier's dream, well, if Xavier isn't willing to enforce it, then oh well. You've got 200 people that you're responsible for, and this is your only way that you can see to right what was essentially genocide on the part of the Scarlet Witch. I mean, the only reason why they had 200 people is because she didn't quite pull off what she wanted to do.
Yeah. But since we've gotten to the meat of the discussion, let's poke ahead here to issue 6, where Stark brings his Phoenix special armor to the fray and really just kind of mucks the whole thing up.
Right.
Well, I mean, I will admit that there's not very many ways this could have gone. The Phoenix would have gotten to the moon. It probably would have gotten to Hope, and then it was up to... It pretty much would have been up to Cyclops and his team then to keep her focused enough to do what she needed to do.
Except she had already flinched at that point and was already asking Wolverine to kill her, so...
Yeah, well, Hope is Cable's daughter. She's smart enough to know when she's in over her head, and she's one of the few people very likely to admit it. But at the same time, Stark's inference, at least then the Phoenix may have gone in a different direction. Maybe it would have circled back around. Maybe it would have taken the long way around the cosmos. But instead, even though it was already backing off, he had to use this modified armor and fracture the damn thing.
Yeah, so that was one force... oh god, I can't think now.
Yeah, instead of one cosmic-powered being, you're dealing with 5.
Yes, that's what I was getting to.
Yeah, so you now have multiple targets. Not only that, this, for the first time ever, the Phoenix has an actual following. Not a team, just an army willing to stand behind it.
They almost seemed, like a hive mind.
Probably true, because, the powers of the Phoenix make you an automatic telepath and telekinetic. So I'm sure they were talking very quickly amongst each other.
Mm-hmm.
But when they first got it, it didn't seem like such a horrible thing. The X-Men did go around fixing a lot of what was wrong with the planet, at least.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I think had they been allowed to go their own way, had the Avengers not interfered in the way that they did, things probably would have remained, good for all intents and purposes.
I don't know about good, because this goes back to what V said about Superman. When you have that much power and the ability to do what you want in a moment and nobody can stop you, you're pretty likely to follow your impulses.
Right. I think while the power was diffused, it was definitely slowing the corruption.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Namor being the first one to go batshit crazy really didn't surprise me too terribly much.
Yeah, considering he's been a villain as often he's been a hero, yeah, that's really unsurprising.
And he's he considers himself a ruler, but quite frankly, he seems more of a dictator, or at best really, truly, he's yeah.
Well, I think this was another. I think this was another failure on the people from the outside looking in, because you're right. As soon as the Phoenix was involved, that's when Xavier finally came back and at least looked in on how things were going. Captain America, instead of trying to deal with Cyclops originally as a leader of a race, still tried to deal with him as, the leader of a bunch of rogues. And unfortunately, when you have that much power, your opinions are going to carry over. It's not like their brains were completely corrupted and replaced by this thing.
Right.
So he had created all these weird prejudices that Cyclops had against him, and they were just magnified all of a sudden because now he has the power to ignore the man. And it's, even though they could have repackaged the Avengers and represented themselves as a bunch of individuals who at least may want to discuss how this could fix the world, instead they immediately just started treating themselves like a kind of a rebellion force, really.
Yeah. I mean, without reading all the little side things, it's a little abrupt in a way, but you could, just from the conversations, you could tell that, world opinion, at least, was favoring the benevolent conquerors rather than the Avengers.
Well, it's probably because, most of the Phoenix Five were engaged destroying most weapons of war, creating new fields, creating water, trying to fix the fault lines in the planet. They were actually doing what they were trained to do. Just now they have the power to go about it.
Right.
One of the things I did take away from this series that I thought was really interesting, did you notice how Marvel Girl, Rachel Gray, pretty much put her trust almost entirely in Hope throughout the series?
Yeah. And sided with Cyclops rather than Wolverine.
Well, at the beginning, yeah. If you read the tie-ins, later on when Cyclops and his crew started to really lose their minds, Rachel had the chance to pin down Hope and capture her, and instead she let her go because she knew Hope was the one to fix it. For those who are uninitiated, Rachel Gray has been a Phoenix Force host previously.
Yep.
Of the whole thing. So she probably understands it better than most. Another reason why I think the Avengers could have at least asked the opinion of these people. as to what to do.
I mean, they went and asked the opinion of one person.
Yeah, the guy whose modus operandi is rah rah shred shred.
Yeah, and I admit that due to Wolverine's multiple team ties, he was probably the most accessible to Captain America and somebody that he'd had more interaction with. So I could definitely see on that interpersonal level, Captain America would be a lot more comfortable going and talking to Wolverine over any of the other X-Men, except for the fact that he also had Beast on his team.
Yeah.
And while Beast was not, exactly seeing eye to eye with Cyclops either, he tends to be a little more level-headed and a little less of the, claw, rah, rah, slash type.
Oh, Beast is definitely the most pragmatic X-Man ever.
So, at that point, why didn't you go talk to him instead of Wolverine? But, in any case.
Yeah. And as the series progressed, the one weapon that actually seemed to work was the Scarlet Witch. Her reality warping powers and her hex bolts actually got through to the Phoenix Five on different levels. That was a little too bit of a magic bullet to me, almost literally.
Well, I think the way they originally described it, essentially being she's the one that caused the phenomenon that if you take everyone at their word, which I guess you kind of have to, being that it was kind of narration through character conversations. Hope was created by the Phoenix Force as the host in response to Wanda wiping out most of the mutants, and the Phoenix Force basically said, "Hey, no." So their powers were kind of that little mix there, so I can definitely see why she would be able to affect the Phoenix in that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I guess it was just too much for me. But did you notice how Hawkeye nearly died again in another Marvel event? I swear, he's like
kind of expecting it.
He's like the Avengers red shirt for crying out loud these days.
Yeah. I mean, how many times? I mean, yeah, he almost got burned to a crisp, and then, of course, he starts shooting, you have to give the man some credit, though. He's running around with bow and arrows, and, it's just, and you're dealing with a cosmic level entity, it's kind of like...
I get that he's brave, but sooner or later, you do have to... Yeah, I totally get that he's brave and that he's courageous, but sooner or later you gotta wonder if he needs a white helmet to go along with that bow and arrow.
Yeah, and at the same time, you'd also have to, Black Widow's there too, and she's really not doing too much better as far as
No, but she didn't stand in the middle pissing off the fire flinger.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the same time, she wasn't even really depicted in kind of any of the real later battles.
No, she was probably captured or something.
Yeah,
but it was in this series that you do find out a little bit about what Emma Frost talked about in the latest Uncanny X-Men. Her descent into madness was much more subtle than the others.
Yeah, until the end. Then it was pretty obvious.
Well, I mean, it's like in the 7th one where she convinced Namor to go out and attack his enemies like he had been wanting to. That seemed like a move that the prior versions of Emma Frost would make, but if you'd read the comics recently, you know that generally that is not her speed. At least not today.
Yeah, that was a big dick move. I mean, she's currently in a relationship with Scott, but instead she goes over, completely shuts Scott out, and eggs Namor on, and also kissed him. So that. Yeah, it was a betrayal.
Yeah.
On multiple levels.
Well, I don't think that was all Phoenix Entity, because she had made it pretty clear she was sexually attracted to Namor on certain points, but I do think it corrupted her enough to where she was following on those deep, dark impulses she never wanted before.
Right.
But, of course, after Namor's defeat is when they found out the remainder of what he had was spread among the 4 of them, so they just became more powerful.
Yay.
And you can imagine where that goes. I thought it was almost hilarious when Magic and Colossus took each other out at the same time.
Due to Spider-Man, I loved that. That was probably my favorite part in the entire series.
Yeah, Spider-Man using his hidden weapon.
Spider-Man single-handedly defeats 2 of them. Holy crap.
That was one of the few truly superhero moments of the whole series when Spider-Man just tossed everybody out and,
Locked himself in.
Yeah, he basically took the hit knowing that he wasn't going to make it out. Instead, he did, but he managed to score a major victory without cosmic power. And that, to me, that's often what the mettle of a superhero is if he'll stand in among odds that seem impossible, but still come out of it.
Right. And then I also really loved the way that they played up that whole role with his conversation with Hope. You will find your time to shine. There is a reason. I'm sitting here hanging out with all of these people, Thor, Captain America, Hulk, all these guys, but there's always that moment where I come in, and then here it came, shortly thereafter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the same issue where that happened, we found out a bit more about how much Frost was struggling with the Phoenix influence. I mean, there was that point where Cyclops was talking to her, flew away, and she said, not loud enough for him to hear, that he shouldn't go, and she was worried about what she was going to do next.
And then the very next time you see her, she's, killing some poor family man.
Who thought negative things about mutants in general.
No, had run over and killed a mutant.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, it was one of those things where she saw it coming. It's like I said, her descent into madness was very subtle, but when it happened, it happened.
Yep.
But
and then shortly thereafter, she's mind controlling all the mutants that she's supposed to be, protecting.
Right. Well, you had to figure they were going to do that anyway, because there was no way the X-Men would have accepted a Phoenix gift on its face. Even if they wanted it to be proper, they know too much about it.
Well, actually, I mean, at least towards the middle there, they were all perfectly fine. They were like, yeah, we're still on their side. They're doing good.
Yeah, but it's still...
And about the time that Namor went down, that was where everybody was like, wait a minute.
Well, of course, because they overstepped their bounds and they started taking, these Superman level of personal initiative, which just doesn't help. When you start... Like we said, when you start doing things just because you can doesn't always mean you should.
Right.
And somebody who has the power to do these things is never going to see it as something they should not do.
At least, not, I mean, that is, again, it's the power without accountability.
Yeah.
And people are not willing to take accountability unless they're forced to. And you can't force someone with that much power to take accountability unless you've got more power.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's like when Hope found her moment, she teleported Cyclops to the moon. That was a good one.
Yep.
She took her shot. But, I mean, we all know where this ends. Cyclops and Emma Frost get into a tiff. Cyclops becomes a Dark Phoenix.
Yeah, that's a little less...
I thought it was an appropriate drama moment. The problem was that it was so stretched out and you could see it coming from miles away.
Yes. But having read the later parts before the earlier part, it seemed to me like from their conversation that Scott was a little less to blame, but after actually reading the events, I was like, whoa, nope, he totally just blindsided her there. There was a lot less provocation than I thought.
Well, like I said, during the tie-ins, they had one last, quiet date before this big fight, and Frost had mentioned how she wanted to just burn the world and start over. She wanted to remake the planet because the Avengers were just ticking her off too much, and she was sensing too much acrimony from the X-Men. So I do think on some level he saw her in trouble. She was about to go down, and instead of letting her be desperate enough that she was probably going to blow up the city, he stepped in. Not because it was necessarily the right thing to do, but because at most levels, Cyclops he's a thinker. And he'll measure the cost of letting her go out of control versus his possibility of being able to control the whole thing.
Yeah, although at the same time, I think it was also a bit more of a desperation tactic.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with that. I think he was desperate to keep her from shattering the planet, but he couldn't...
No, I think it was more he was on the losing end at that particular time and was like, I need more power.
Yeah, but it's all, again, we've discussed how it's all filtered through the Phoenix, so the usual decision process is not there.
Right.
But the way it ended was appropriately dramatic. However, I don't know. the ending wasn't quite what I hoped for because the reemergence of the New Mutants was kind of quiet by comparison.
Mm.
It wasn't quite that sun rises tomorrow moment, although the speech he gave Captain America at the end was pretty good.
Yeah. Seeing how things have progressed past that, I can't really blame... I don't really blame any of the Phoenix Five for what they did.
Nah.
They did what they thought they had to do.
Yeah.
They obviously.
Well, they didn't just do what they had to do. They were given amounts of power they never thought they would attain.
Right. And it wasn't through their own will.
Right.
So, there's plenty of blame to be shared all around. So it kind of amuses me, when Captain America takes it on his authority to lock Cyclops up, oh yeah, I can totally judge you. No, you can't. There were people on your own team that are just as guilty, and yet they aren't being punished.
Yeah, you could argue that all the way back to when the Scarlet Witch had her breakdown, if they had handled that better, Cyclops wouldn't be in a cell today.
True enough. And Hope points that out at one particular point. And that actually does bring up the point. It's like, no, Scarlet Witch did not actually kill anybody with her stripping all, most mutants of their power. But that was still, that's almost like racial rape. You just stripped people involuntarily.
That is an image I never wanted to picture.
Their protection of their power, of their, free
identity.
Yeah, exactly. You just, and she was never punished for it. She was ostracized.
Well, I do think there's two significant points that need to be made. First of all is that the reason why Cyclops broke out and restarted his team is something that came out in the Consequence series, the kind of Aftermath tie-in miniseries.
Mm-hmm.
Cyclops found out that even though they encountered him while they were still the Phoenix Five, Mr. Sinister survived and was taunting him. While he sat there freely in jail, just kind of waiting to be a martyr, Sinister came and taunted him and pretty much dared him to come out because, as he put it, Cyclops is the only one capable of finding him, which unfortunately is true in a lot of respects. So that's one of the major reasons why he busted out. But the other major point from all this is it goes back to our anatomy of a hero discussion. The difference between where Cyclops is and where Captain America is, even though the responsibility for the end result is almost even, is all about acceptance. The superhero community accepted Captain America's answer versus Cyclops' answer, so that's the reason why Cyclops was the one in jail.
Right. The victor always writes history.
Right.
So, whoever won is the one that gets to put his spin on things. So, there you have it.
Yeah.
To be honest, there was that point where, I was part of Cyclops' plan, but right after, right in the very beginning, where Cyclops surrendered. Yeah. And all of them are sitting up on the helicarrier, and Captain America is just like, no, I want them all gone, I want them all locked up and everything, and it's just like, dude, really? It's Iron Man of all people. So there's arguing with him about, no, you don't have the right, you have nowhere to put them, what are you planning on doing? What is your plan? He had no plan at that point. It was all just reactionary, you tested me, you defied me, and I'm going to get you the hell out of the way so that I can go about with my plan to save the world.
Yeah, well,
whether it's a good plan or not.
Absolutely. During the Civil War event, I agree with Captain America's stance, but I've always said that Tony Stark is the better leader because Tony Stark thinks ahead. He and Cyclops do share that trait, that they will think 3 steps ahead of themselves to imagine what would happen if they actually succeeded with step 1.
Right.
Captain America, he's a lot like Wolverine, and his battle formation is generally, charge!
Yeah, that's the thing. Captain America is a very inspirational leader, and that's good for certain things. But yeah, he's definitely. It's not that he's stupid, but
no.
Yeah, he doesn't think ahead.
Yeah. Well, I think we've hit most of the majors there. V, would you read this?
Yeah.
Ringing endorsement. I mean, Jesse, Steve, would you recommend this event to other people?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think that it was, especially if you're going to read some of the newer stuff, it gets you grounded.
Yeah, I do think it slips at certain points. It's not a perfect. It's not as good as Civil War, but it is. A, it's a good way to get introduced to the modern Marvel universe, and B, it does hit enough of the major points, and it has a good tempo to it. So I would actually say that if you're interested in getting into where Marvel is, you should really start here. Not just because most of the story comes out of here, but because they did tell a really good story overall, and it features a lot of their big characters. But I spent a little while thinking ahead because, of course, we're off for July 4th weekend because I'll unfortunately be out of position unless I really feel like podcasting from my hotel room. But I was thinking about our next 3 shows, which would be the next 2 weekends and then the first one after the break. How would you guys feel about our shows being in order of pop culture profiling? The next show we would finally have our conversation about superhero sexuality. And then the show after that, how about we delve into something that's going to be pretty topical by that time, and we read the first volume of Kick-Ass?
Ooh.
Okay.
All right.
All right. V, you're actually going to be able to put eyes to paper, right?
Yes.
Okay. And V, I want you to read the first volume of Empowered, because next week I would like to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, Jared ended up, because of the whole thing, ended up reading the first 4 volumes, and he loved it so much that he had to go out and find the other 3.
Well, about time he finally got involved with something.
Well, actually, that's kind of been the amusing thing about this whole thing. Because we've kind of started up and reading comics and everything, then he's actually started reading again.
Oh, okay. Maybe he'll get involved at some point. But, since next week is pop culture profiling, you know what that means.
We need to pick people.
We need names! We need to name names. Anybody have any suggestions?
Captain Hammer.
I can't wait for that sequel to come out. You need to sit down and watch Dr. Horrible sing-along blog. Trust me.
Yeah. If you haven't seen it, you should.
Yeah.
And it's not like a long watch.
No, it's only like an hour. But, no, we need... I don't know, we could have on Captain Hammer, we could have a 30-minute conversation of dick moves. But, no, we need some heroes and villains to ring out here.
Wow.
Brain has gone silent.
Oh my gosh, you guys have suddenly come up with so much interesting stuff to talk about.
Yeah,
First thing coming to mind, because I've been playing my Marvel Heroes, The Thing.
Oh, that's a decent one. I mean, you want to talk about stuff that's happened to a guy, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I think I actually read The Thing.
Not the creature thing. We're talking like the Fantastic Four Orange Rock Man.
Oh, never mind.
Let's see. I think someone mentioned Colossus before.
I did, yes.
Okay. That is at least different.
what about
What about who?
One of the Watchmen.
We could. Which one, though?
The blue one?
No.
I don't know.
No, actually, that'd be a decent one. I mean, you want to talk about something outside the norm. Dr. Manhattan is it. The only thing is, though, you have to promise that the conversation will not necessarily be about penis length.
I promise.
Okay. Because, the more I see of this movie, the less I have trouble enjoying my breakfast sausages.
I'm sorry, but nothing beats Marvel versus DC. Just
skip it! Let's see.
Whoa!
Oh, yes.
Let me see. Colossus, Dr. Manhattan, and The Thing. That's an interesting start. We need at least
Have we
2
done
more.
Iceman yet?
Who?
Iceman?
No, we haven't.
Bobby Drake. He seems like an interesting
Yeah. Speaking of which, how about we do Spider-Man as well?
I was just actually thinking that.
Alright, shoot.
Should we do the one that we're all familiar with, or the one that has been,
The one we're all familiar
We'll just go with the Peter Parker version, because I don't need to try to re-explain the Otto Octavius version to people. I think that would hurt my testes. We can add Spider-Woman as a possible 7th in case 6 does not work out. Because she is similar but very different.
We have no villains in this roster.
No, we don't. I was just looking at that.
I don't know, one of the names I suggested before was actually Mr. Freeze.
Might be a little too similar than Iceman to be in the same conversation.
Yeah. Shoot.
It's kind of odd that there's so many interesting villains out there, but we're having this much trouble right now. You know what? How about we go low-tech and go Toad? His mutation, or his power set is pretty unique.
Yeah, that is very true.
But we're talking about a very depressing person.
I don't know about depressing. I mean, we're talking about the powers without the person. We're talking about the powers given to someone else. So this could be something different. Yeah. So that's actually a pretty rounded group of 7. The Thing, Colossus, Dr. Manhattan, Iceman, Spider-Man, Toad, and Spider-Woman. That's not bad.
I have to wonder, though. I mean, honestly, just knowing this is a guy that has this unique power set, and yet he is now a janitor. I mean, that just kind of says something, doesn't it? It's like, my powers are good enough to be a janitor.
You want to hear something worse? He got picked up by the Hellfire Academy, kind of this school that's trying to teach mutants to be supervillains. He decided to join their school. Guess what he's doing?
Janitor?
Yeah, they gave him a mop. And there was actually one piece of news I forgot to share with you guys, so we'll finish up with this. Do you guys remember Defenders of the Earth?
Oh, God. Barely.
Flash Gordon, the Phantom, Lothar, Mandrake the Magician.
Okay.
There's a new series coming out called King's Watch. It's a new comic series. The characters involved are Flash Gordon, the Phantom, and Mandrake the Magician. It's a 5-issue miniseries coming out in September. I believe it's being put out by Dynamite Press. It's not that I have an issue with things going retro, but I guess my question turns into, who asked for this?
Yeah. I don't know. My question is this even really relevant anymore?
I don't know. I mean,
there's retro, and then there's like, dude, you just like necroed this whole thing.
Well, it's not even. It's a little more serious than you think, because the Phantom has those weird blue and purple striped trunks instead of the straight black ones. So we've gone even further backwards here. And I mean, I read all this, and the one thing that strikes me, being like the one minority among us, is that for some reason, Lothar, the one minority from the Defenders of the Earth, didn't make it into the series. Black man not good enough for you, honkies?
Oh, man.
You know, I mean, this could... Who knows? The writing could be so snappy, this could actually work. But this is literally one of those... To me, it's like Men in Black 3. Who asked for this, and who do I shoot to stop it?
I don't know. I'm having flashbacks to Ted.
Oh my god. Alright, I think we should call it there because...
Song runs through my head. Excellent.
Fuck you, Thunder. I think we should end it there because we've run long and it's getting late.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for tuning in. I want you to roll with us again next week when we do more pop culture profiling, and we will probably find other ways that we're still reading comics, but we'll find new reasons not to read comics. It's kind of weird the way it works out. But tune in next week. Hopefully V will have read Empowered, and we'll get to hear what she thinks of that so interesting piece of writing. So, on behalf of the Rollin' 20s, I am Jeremy.
Steve.
Jesse.
Thank you very much.